going on, everyone? I'm back with another video, and in this video I thought we would do something a little bit different. Today we're going to jump on the trend of your year wrapped. So companies like Spotify and Reddit have been doing them, and they're sort of fun ways to summarize your year. And I thought I'd do something a little bit similar with physics that you can also participate in. So it's just a Google form with a bunch of sort of fun questions. So in this video, I'm going to go through the form myself and answer them, and then you can feel free to also go through the form and answer them. So feel free to comment about your experience filling out the form. Leave a comment on YouTube or join my Discord channel and comment on it there. Again, these questions are sort of just for fun, maybe poke a few laughs at ourselves and sort of summarize in sort of a goofy context your physics year and my physics year and perhaps our community's physics year. Okay, without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the first question is a burning question. You know, in physics, we don't just contribute knowledge, we also contribute some good laughs. There's lots of good meme communities out there. So what I want to know is, what was your largest number of internet points earned for a meme that you created? So this can be Reddit upvotes, I don't know, hearts on Twitter, whatever you want. So for me, I submit occasionally. And so this one would be about 1,000 for me. I don't think I got anywhere near 10,000. So the meme that had the best reception this year was something that's going to look familiar to you if you watch this channel regularly. It's the following one. So referee A loving your article and referee B absolutely hating it. So this is sort of poking fun at somehow a universal experience that physicists have. For some reason, sometimes you will get extremely different feedback from referees when you submit an article. Referee A will absolutely love it and want to publish it, and then referee B will perhaps make you wonder why it was even worth submitting the article, or it might give you a little bit of an imposter syndrome because they will hate the article so deeply. Sort of a strange experience, but I think it's a very regular experience that people have in physics. I created recently a Microsoft Teams sort of chat meme video about this experience, especially when it's like your first article and you're not sort of used to this strange feedback. Now, if you don't create any content like this, don't worry about it. You can always skip any of these questions. This might be the only question that you might not be able to answer. I just thought it was sort of a fun one. Okay, so I imagine that a lot of people get into the habit of getting very excited about new projects and new directions. So how many projects did you start in 2022? So I put from 0 to 10, 10 being 10 or more. And for me, I have the habit of starting up a lot of projects. So I'm going to go ahead and estimate that maybe this was about 8 or 9, let's say 9. And for me, I'm going to answer this with, these are projects that I seriously started, maybe a day's work, some amount of time of reading, etc. Maybe not, just something I randomly thought of. Burning question, how much do you actually follow through? And I feel like everyone I know's conversion rate is actually exceptionally small. So I'm going to count 3 for this one. So my 3 are, there's 2 articles that I put out that are currently on archive. So I don't even know if you can count those because they're not published yet, but I'm going to count them. And then I also finished my my PhD. So my PhD thesis, I'm going to count that as a finished. Project. So how many projects did you actually forget about? So I guess this is somehow different from how many projects did you not complete. And so projects that I actually forgot about this year. So there were definitely a couple. There were projects where I was looking into using some novel numerical method or some new numerical method that's been out in the literature, trying to implement it for myself. Because there's so many options to sort of work with, as soon as there was sort of resistance, I may or may not have just moved on to another numerical method, and this happened a few times. So I would say that in terms of actively forgetting about a project, I'm going to say that that's at least four. At least four. There's one active project that I sort of stopped working on this year because I was very busy. And I guess that's the conservation of my projects right there. All the projects I forgot about, all the projects I finished, and then there's one extra project. For all I know, I'm not doing basic math correctly right now, but yeah, so there's only really one project that comes to mind that I'm actively thinking about pursuing in the future that I've sort of put on hold. So for this one, it's just a chance for you and me to sort of humble brag. So what is the project that you're most excited about completing in this past year? So for me, I guess it would have to be my PhD thesis. So my PhD thesis, I was in my PhD for 3 years. And it took a long time to actually, do all the work that ended up going into it, of course, but then also writing the introduction, proofreading, going through all those processes, and then defending my thesis. It was, I guess, definitely something to be proud of. So I'm going to write finishing my PhD. So how many skills did you attempt to learn? So for me, I tend to be very tempted to learn new skills. A lot of the time, what that ends up being is it ends up being, some new type of numerical technique. Sometimes it's maybe even a new sort of area of mathematics that I've never truly explored. So unfortunately for me, I'm going to have to be kind of vague here. I'm going to put 10 or more. And the reason for this is that in this last year, one of my big goals was to sort of broaden my skill set. So I was really interested in getting to know all kinds of different types of tensor network techniques. On top of that, I was really interested in expanding sort of my analytic background. And because of that, I ended up starting to attempt to learn many things this year. So how many new skills did you actually learn? And I'm going to put, sort of a high threshold here for what I mean by for me to actually learn something. And it's honestly very small. A lot of times in research, you end up re-employing techniques that you've already worked with. And it takes a lot of effort and time to learn, to actually incorporate new skills into your repertoire, especially once you're past the stage of your physics career where you're no longer expected to dedicate 95% of your time to learning, right? Like, I'm not an undergraduate student anymore, and in my master's a lot of time was also allocated to learning. In a PhD, even less so. So when all of my sort of time is supposed to be dedicated to research, but I still have the same curiosity that I had when I was an undergrad, I tend to not follow through with these things very well. So I'm gonna say two that I could actually justify. One was I worked a lot with DMRG type algorithms. And really what this skill is I learned how to code with the iTensor library much better than I had in the past. And another big skill that I would say I'm still learning is I'm now working on these things called dual unitary circuits. Initially it was quite the hurdle. For some reason I didn't find them very intuitive, especially with these tensor network diagrams, and then instead of implementing these types of diagrams on a computer with a pre-built library, it really challenged me to start trying to do analytics with them. It's certainly sort of a soft two. I wouldn't particularly say that I'm a master of either of these two yet. So which skill are you most proud of? This one is hard for me for this year. Maybe I'm being too hard on myself, but this year I felt like a lot of my time was eaten up by writing papers, so things that were already finished. I also spent a lot of time writing my PhD thesis. So I don't feel like, despite the fact that my original goal was to learn a lot of different new skills, I didn't end up actually following through with this very well. So I'm going to say something lame, and I'm just going to say sort of learning how to deal with tensor network diagrams better. But I don't know, perhaps I'm being too hard on myself. So don't be too hard on yourself when you're when you're doing this. But for some reason, I don't feel like, in terms of expanding my actual skill set, that I actually did grow as much as I wanted to. So for some reason, that's stopping me from feeling proud of myself. But it is what it is. So this will just generically be working with tensor network diagrams, either to write code or actually do analytics. But my true kryptonite is actually getting really distracted by random topics. So topics that aren't necessarily very related to my research. I've recently gotten very interested in reading Jane's textbook on probability, and so you sort of start talking about, what does it mean to reason like a human, and you talk about plausible reasoning, and from there, you sort of derive probability, and so that's not useful for my research. There's other things that I got interested in, like at one point, I got very distracted trying to learn functional analysis. It sort of started as myself sort of like digging myself a hole. I wanted to learn a specific type of algebra that I see in more mathematically inclined articles in my field. And then as I literally bought a book, realized I didn't have the background for that book, and then I bought another book to give me the background for the first book, and then it sort of went down a rabbit hole until I arrived at functional analysis. So as much as functional analysis is actually useful for my field, I'm going to claim that this is the most off-topic textbook that I bought. So I'm going to put how many random topics did you get distracted by for a significant amount of time, let's say. And I'm going to put 10 or more because I sort of got lost in the weeds a few times. So sort of a dark, maybe potentially a dark humor kind of question. How many days did you think about quitting physics? And I think there's like sort of a very universal human element to this, in the sense that, physics is hard, and it's certainly not the most financially rewarding thing that you can do. So there's always going to be temptations to be looking at other things, especially when things are particularly hard. I don't know if that's universal. You can tell me if you don't actually have that type of experience, but I definitely do. So how many days did you think about quitting physics? Before I fully answer, I have to say that there were a lot of ups and downs when I wrote my thesis. That's not to say that writing a thesis is a bad thing or like it's a hard thing, but it's potentially not, a distressing thing. There are some people and I saw at the beginning, I saw writing my thesis as sort of a chance to sit down and collect my thoughts. But at the same time, it's just, I don't know, it's, on some level, it was almost overwhelming. And so I did spend, a few nights thinking to myself, like, what am I doing? But, I'd always come back to, I love physics, blah, blah, blah. So unfortunately, because of my PhD thesis, very out of the ordinary here, I did fantasize about doing something else a lot this year. So hopefully if we do this again next year, I can report back to you that I did not think about quitting physics that much in 2023, but, unfortunately, I did have, a little bit of a rough time during my PhD thesis. So how many friends did you make along the way? One of the most fun things about physics is meeting people, potentially working with them, becoming friends with them. You meet people from all over the world. I'm in Nottingham now, and in my office, most people aren't from England. And so that's a really cool thing about physics, is that no matter where you are, it's usually a very international experience, or at least at the universities that I've been at. So that's a sample size of 3, but at least in my sample size of 3, it's usually a very international experience. And so how many friends did you make along the way? So we had new students come in to research groups that I was working in. And also moving to Nottingham, I've met a lot of wonderful people. I guess it's sort of hard to estimate, but I don't know. Let's pick 5. And I'm going to say this as friends, as in like I would genuinely text these people and be like, hey, let's go for a drink, or let's go for a meal, or let's make plans. So which equation kept you up at night? So give context / LaTeX it. So I'll put it up on the screen when I edit, but basically the equation that I thought about the most this year, I guess there's kind of 2, but they're related. And that was, so I'll just talk about one. And the one that I thought about a lot was the fact that you can have a pure state time evolution, so take some operator A and evolve it in time, and take the state of the system to be some pure state, right? So there's some arguments to be made, and in fact, these arguments lead to some very, nice physics called the fluctuation dissipation relation, that you can relate this difficult to study problem to a much simpler problem. So you can say, A of t is equal to some correlation function in time times the initial condition of your pure state evolution of that operator. And this equation holds supposedly with high probability, but it actually doesn't hold all that well. So there are conditions under which it holds better than others, but these aren't well understood. And so I thought very hard about this problem sort of all year, and investigating this property actually accidentally led to my paper on the Poincare recurrence theorem. But anyways, so this is the equation that sort of like kept me up at night. It's the equation that, when I was sitting in bed and I couldn't sleep, this is the equation I was thinking about. So topic you spent the most time being confused by, and name it. So the topic that I was most confused by was, to be honest with you, I'm not a very geometric thinker. Looking at diagrams is not helpful. In the past has not been helpful for me, but it seems like in the field today that I'm in, these tensor network notations and diagrams are becoming sort of more and more important to understanding current literature and also making progress in your field. So I spent a lot of time getting myself way more familiar with sort of looking at those diagrams and extracting intuition from them. But to be honest with you, because of the way my brain works, I'm perfectly capable of doing various forms of mathematics. I don't know, it just doesn't click with me in the way that other people seem to have it down. But admittedly, I only really talk to more experienced people about it. Okay, so now moving on to sort of coding questions. I feel like most physicists code at least a little bit. Even if you're really deep into analytics, you probably use Mathematica or Maple or some other type of symbolic computing language. So sort of a funny question to ask is the longest time sort of trying to resolve some bug that's in your code. So I know people that could potentially say months. For me, it's usually on the order of like weeks. I think the longest one this year was 2 weeks. Okay, so what percentage of your bugs, though, are you just forgetting basic syntax? So I had a funny conversation with another graduate student at one point where they claimed that they had never had an error in C++ from forgetting a semicolon at the end of a line. And this is something to this day I don't believe. Maybe this is just to be nice to myself, but I feel like probably the majority of my bugs are easily resolved because they're just syntax errors. So I'm going to go ahead and say 9, so 90%. I don't know what it is. I sort of like get caught up in the moment, or I miss semicolons. I start writing a line and then I'll just move on. So I don't know. Like I feel like most of my errors, the vast majority of my errors, are extremely basic. And so a really difficult question is up next. What is the best language for physics today? And for me, that answer is pretty simple, and that is C++. So overall, how would you rate your physics year out of 10? So there were lots of highs and lows for me. Very exciting finishing my PhD. Very exciting moving to Nottingham to start my first postdoc. At the same time, looking back, this is sort of toxic with myself, but I do feel like I didn't learn as much as I wanted to learn. I didn't accomplish as much as I wanted to accomplish, but I mean, a lot of that is to do with the fact that I was busy doing other things. Like, you're not particularly expanding your skill set when you're summarizing basically your skill set and what you've learned in your PhD thesis, right? So I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10, and hopefully we can get a 10 out of 10 in 2023. A burning question, and a question that literally has no answer. You cannot answer this, but I'm not going to give you the opportunity to not answer this. What is the state of the universe? Is it a mixed state or is it a pure state? So the correct answer is I don't know, or perhaps it's not the right answer. But and I guess maybe you'd have to be more rigorous about what you mean by the universe. But I'm just gonna put yes. I mean, seems like a safe answer. But if the option I don't know was there, even though I'm in control of the of the form, I would probably put I don't know. But that's boring. So I'm gonna put yes. So I hope to see at least a few submissions from the community. All these questions are just for fun, so just have fun with them. So with that, I just want to quickly plug the Discord channel here at the end of the video. The Discord channel that I've been running, it's growing. I think it's at 65 members as of shooting this video. Sort of as it grows, we're getting more and more people interacting in the community, asking technical questions, or just giving advice to each other about graduate school, many body physics, statistical mechanics. So it's a growing community that's honestly quite interesting. And if that sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. There's slots for fun, like with memes. There's slots to sort of introduce yourself. And there are, chats to talk about academic life and so on. So overall, check it out if that sounds interesting. And if you liked the video, feel free to subscribe, and leave a comment below. And I will see you next time.